Let's take a listen at this extraordinary comment by this person, Scott Ritter, talking to the judge.
Well, first of all, we have to realize that the United States is a rogue nation right now, that we are operating outside the framework of international law. I want to remind people that back in February 4th of 2022, Vladimir Putin flew to Beijing to meet with Xi Jinping on the eve of the Beijing Winter Olympics. And the two of them published a 5,000 word joint document in which they said that the rules based international order that serves as the foundation of how America interacts with the world is a problem, and that Russia and China reject this, and they are going to counter with the law-based international order that's premised on the Charter of the United Nations. And this is a major commitment by them, and much of the rest of the world seeks to adhere to the United Nations Charter, this framework of international law. So all of the nations that you mentioned, I believe, will be working to ensure that America's gross act of irresponsibility and illegality doesn't destroy this framework of international law. And I think you'll be seeing the Russians and the Chinese moving to isolate the United States at the Security Council, at the United Nations, Pakistan doing the same thing. This doesn't mean that they can't provide assistance to Iran, and they are going to provide assistance to Iran. But I believe that all of these nations will be working to prevent an escalation, a dangerous escalation of this conflict. I think the goal right now is to isolate the United States and keep the United States from re-engaging militarily while allowing Iran to continue its lawful retaliation against Israel. Remember, Israel initiated this by carrying out an unlawful, illegal surprise attack with no justification. Israel hasn't even tried to make cognitive an argument under Article 51, preeminent self-defense. They haven't done that because they can't do that.
Right.
Because any imminent threat is nullified by the fact that the Iranians were actively in negotiations dealing with the very issue at hand. Iran, however, has gone to the United Nations, has said that they will defend themselves, and Iran's legitimacy of carrying out these strikes against Israel continue until which time Israel stops striking Iran. It is literally the more Israel bombs Iran, the more legitimate Iran's retaliation becomes. So I think what we're going to see is the international community working to contain this problem. Already you see the United States reaching out to China, asking for Chinese intervention to keep the Iranians from shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. Whether or not China acts on that, I don't know. But the point is, you see the Iranian foreign minister flying to Russia, to Moscow, to meet with Vladimir Putin. I think the Iranians will hold off on any precipitous act until they have touched base with all of their supporters. And I do believe that Iran will remain consistent to international law and not seek to act in a manner which, while maybe justifiable from an emotional standpoint, would not be allowed under international. For instance, for Iran to strike Saudi Arabia today is not something that would be permitted because the American forces deployed in Saudi Arabia did not participate in this attack, and
Right.
Saudi Arabia has condemned this. So I don't, for the people that think that Iran's going to come out and lash out irresponsibly, I don't see that happening. What I believe Iran will do is continue to operate within the framework of international law, working to isolate the United States and keep the focus on where it belongs, which is the criminal actions of Israel.
What is the extent of damage that Iran has caused in Israel, which the Netanyahu regime is keeping from the West and from all media?
The fact is, we don't know exactly because of
Right, because they're keeping it from us. What do you think, though, just from the nature of your understanding of the destructive power of the projectiles that have been launched and of the weakening power of their so-called Iron Dome?
Well, we also have to emphasize the accuracy of these missiles, meaning that when you launch a missile with destructive power, there's a difference between landing in a civilian population area and hitting a target of military or economic value. And the Iranians are using weapons that have a high degree of accuracy. They're targeting military targets. This isn't me speaking. I mean, I know people are out there going, well, Scott, you're just a tool of this, that, and the other thing. This statement actually comes from the former head of an Israeli intelligence unit, Unit 8200, who has said that, we, the Israelis, are trying to, paint the Iranians as animals, as beasts. But he said the fact is they're a very capable modern state who's behaving properly in the targeting of Israel, that their targets are exclusively military in nature or related to, legitimate national security, targetable sites. This is a senior Israeli official saying this, and that's the reality. Iran is doing horrific damage to the Israelis. These strikes are very accurate. They're inflicting a tremendous amount of damage on Israel. And Israel is a small nation unable to absorb this damage. And so if this conflict continues, you're going to see Israel face the reality that its ability to sustain functionality as a viable nation state is being eroded by an Iranian retaliatory capacity that doesn't seem to have a bottom. Moreover, you speak of the Iron Dome. I hear people say, well, Israel will become defenseless in several days when they run out of interceptor missiles. Judge, Israel's defenseless now. They have all the interceptor missiles they need right now on a daily basis, and they're backed up by the United States. They haven't run out of missiles yet. They're firing.
Well, why are they defenseless if they have not run out of missiles? Explain, please.
Because the Iron Dome doesn't work. It can't defend against a modern missile threat. I mean, and I say this not only to point out the fact that Iron Dome isn't working, but those Americans who listen to the president when he briefs on the Golden Dome, an American ballistic missile defense shield, I'm here to tell you right now, many of the technologies that would be incorporated in that are incorporated by the United States into Israel's ballistic missile defense shield, and they aren't stopping this. And the Iranian missiles, while they're very good, don't compete with Russian intercontinental ballistic missiles in terms of technology lethality. This missile defense is a sham. It's a joke. It's a scam. And it's played out daily by the Iranians firing missiles specifically designed to defeat the missile shield that Israel and the United States have erected.
Wow. I have to stop for just a moment and point out that nearly 49,000 people are watching us live. Putting that in perspective, that's more people than could fit inside of Yankee Stadium here in New York City. Thank you very much for that. We're going to continue, but thank you very much for the size of this audience. Thank you for watching us. Please subscribe. And please like. How wrong-headed, how boneheaded from a military perspective was it to do all of this? And what do you think it cost? They sent some very heavy planes flying westward outside of California as a decoy. They had all this military equipment bombing Iran. And according to you and your sources, all they did was make some holes in the desert. What did it cost?
I mean, something like this, I can't give you the exact figure, Judge, because I don't have it at my fingertips, and I'm not smart enough to retain that in my brain housing group on a permanent basis. But they burn gas. There's every flight hour of a B-2 bomber has a price tag attached to it. This was a very lengthy flight. We're talking about something, we know that they fired 30 cruise missiles. The price tag of a cruise missile is different, remember, because you have to think about just about the cost of the missile that we fired, but the replacement cost. And this is like buying gold. You can buy gold a year ago and pay, 2,000 something for an ounce. But if you buy it today, you're paying 3,400. It costs more.
Right.
And so we're throwing around golden coins, and we have to rebuy them to replenish the stocks. This is a strike that I believe when the total price tag is farmed out, it'll touch upon $100 million. For just this strike, maybe more. But again, it accomplished nothing. It actually did worse than accomplish nothing. It's pushed America in a bind, as I mentioned, Judge. Militarily speaking, failure to achieve the desired destruction at a given site requires a restrike. Here's the problem: when the president, who has announced that Ferdo was destroyed, I can't remember the exact words he used.
He used the word totally obliterated.
Totally obliterated. Now, I may be a simple Marine, and obliterated has one too many syllables for me to normally process. But the fact is, to me, it means that you've sort of taken it out. Right. It doesn't exist anymore. And Ferdo is the exact opposite of that. It is not obliterated. What happens when this reality becomes clear? What happens when the Iranians take TV crews in there and show the world that the president's words are empty, that Pete Hegseth has failed to deliver on his promise, that Marco Rubio, his brilliant plan, is collapsed? What does this narcissistic egomaniac do? And that, does he restrike? Does he say we're going to bomb again? And knowing that the best weapon he had, 6 B-2 bombers, with 12 massive ordnance penetrators, didn't do the job. Does he use nuclear weapons now? This is literally we're in a very dangerous situation. And now,
with the Israeli defense, there is really no defense, because as Scott Ritter pointed out, that Iron Dome system is not working. It is being overwhelmed. It is jammed. It doesn't work to protect the Israelis 100%. It may work sometime, but for most part, we have seen it fail. And the other thing is that Iran is continuously firing missiles at Israel. They're relentless. And the message is very, very clear to Israel. Even though they now, according to the latest report, they have reached a ceasefire between Iran and Israel, they are nevertheless still going with the new salvos of missiles against Israel. And so Iran will not be exhausting itself from firing those missiles at any point, especially in the near future. So what is the end game for Israel? The end game for Israel is to stop this war and to surrender. And I actually spoke about this in my other channel, where I said this guy, This ceasefire deal that Donald Trump has brokered, and this is what he said, oh, there will be a ceasefire, permanent ceasefire. This is actually a surrender for Israel and also for the United States, because the amount of missiles, the number of missiles, with all the advanced technology, embedded missiles that are coming towards Israel every single hour of the day, it is becoming too much. And the other thing also you have to remember is that Iran right now is not just taking aim at Israel and United States, but it is also going to other targets. It's going after even country like Qatar, because as we know that the airfield or the Air Force base of United States, the biggest one, is located in Qatar. This airfield was targeted. It was targeted just a few hours ago. Iran is sending a message to the rest of the Arab nations that, hey, look, if we have to come after you to get our revenge, we're going to do this. We don't care who you are. And Iran is becoming ever more confident and powerful, especially with their ability to produce this kind of ballistic missiles that can really do the job for them. I mean, to me, it looks like Israel found itself to be 100% shocked. U.S. did not expect this kind of missiles to be fired from Iran that will never be intercepted by Iron Dome or David Sling or the third system. And now they're calling for a peace, according to Donald Trump. And this is something that is so pathetic. I mean, when you think about this, they started a war. They did not accomplish nothing after they have dropped those bombs, these bunker buster bombs on these three sites in Natanz, Isfahan, and also the other place in Fordo. After they have dropped all of these bombs and spent millions, if not billions of dollars, they're now all of a sudden, oh, we cannot win this war. Iran is never going to be, that nuclear program will never going to be obliterated. Everything is just a lie and a PR stunt. And now we are in this position, especially for US and Israel. It's a complete disaster. It's a complete waste of money. They have been wasted and being humiliated in front of the whole world by Iran, and now Iran is willing to humiliate countries like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, if they need to.
Now what happens when the reality that this claims he made about destroying the Iranian nuclear program? He hasn't destroyed anything. It's been evacuated. It is in hiding, and we don't know where it is, and we don't know how to find it. What does he do now? Does he say, I'm going to bomb you into oblivion until you declare the totality of your program and subject it to international inspections? And what weapons does he use? We don't have an infinite number of these weapons. At what point in time does this become a nuclear problem for the United States? We have crossed the Rubicon. This is a very dangerous path that we are undertaking, and we don't have good leaders. We don't have good leaders making sound decisions, and the proof of that is the decision they make to support this act of insanity.
Okay, so recently, if you do not know, Russian vice president, I think, or he's the right hand of Vladimir Putin, Dmitry Medvedev, he said that if Iran wants to have a nuclear weapon, they can have it from any country. So in other words, Russia is indirectly saying that we're going to be giving Iran a nuclear weapon, a nuclear bomb, no problem. If Israel attacks, if US attacks with tactical nuclear weapon, Iran will not be abandoned. Iran will have one too, and they are going to be using it against Israel, against the United States. Guys, we are almost at World War III. And with this ceasefire, hopefully this possibility will be decreased, that we're going to be seeing more fight, more war between Israel and Iran. But if it comes to, if the push comes to shove, then of course Iran will have a nuclear weapon, and we are going to be seeing a nuclear warfare very, very soon.
Good question. What do you think Iran will do in the next week or so?
Iran so far has behaved responsibly. They've acted within the four corners of international law, and they haven't done anything precipitously. Iran has a campaign plan that has been in the works for decades that they're implementing right now to break the back of Israel. So logically speaking, you would expect Iran to stay with this plan, not to allow themselves to be deviated, much like we talk about Russia and Ukraine, how there are acts that the Ukrainians carry out acts that are designed to get Russia to overreact. I believe, there's a temptation now for the Iranians to overreact. And I can't say that they're not going to do that. But the fact that their foreign minister is flying to Moscow to meet with Vladimir Putin is indicative of the reality that they are looking to craft an international coalition to isolate the United States, and that their best vehicle for this is international law. So I see Iran not striking out against American bases. Now, of course, we're going to end this program and we'll see that the Iranians have hit the American bases, and everybody will say that Scott Ritter's an idiot. This is the danger of doing,
Right.
doing a prognosis live on TV with incomplete information. But my gut feeling is that Iran knows that they're playing a winning hand against Israel, and that ultimately they will want to continue to play that hand, and they will work with their allies to take care of the American problem, to get America away from this. And I'll say something that gives me some hope. I believe Iran understands the consequences of their actions, that if they do something, that the United States is capable of hitting them very hard. So they want to prevent that. But Iran also understands that Israel's nuclear program is a long-term threat. One of the things that came out of this action is that Dmitry Medvedev, the former Russian president, former Russian prime minister, current deputy of the National Security Council in Russia, has talked about publicly Israel's nuclear program and the incompatibility of that program with international norms and standards. By attacking Iran's nuclear sites the way the United States did, there should be a massive backlash in terms of the damage the United States has done to the nuclear nonproliferation regime. I believe the International Atomic Energy Agency will have no choice but to issue statements condemning the American action. And what we could see, especially if Israel's back is broken, is that one of the results of this tragic set of events is that when the dust settles, Israel will be compelled to turn its program over to international inspections, because Israel will have been identified as being incompatible with the very international law that Russia, China, and others have said is the foundation of how they want to go forward in a...
Iran is not going to be caring anymore about IAEA, what they have to say, because as many analysts and experts, they are saying that from now on, Iran is going to be just building the nuclear weapon without anybody knowing, without any inspection from IAEA, whatever they call themselves, because these are all sham. These are all theatrics. When they go and investigate Iran's nuclear program, they have reached to a point where they're now like, yeah, we don't care about this inspection anymore. So yeah, good luck with that. We are going to be having another country with nuclear weapon in the Middle East, and would that be used? Well, looking at the lunacy, the madness that we are seeing from Israel, it is quite possible that in the near future, very, very soon, we are going to be seeing at least a nuclear arms race in the Middle East more. That means Saudi Arabia will join and have a nuclear weapon, and maybe Turkey will have one. And therefore, before you even realize, we're going to be seeing a nuclear war. That's where we're heading, thanks to, again, the lunacy of the Zionist state of Israel.